Welcome to the Great Shrimp Shoal. Today we're going to get right into the new 20-gallon tank with the weird centerpiece that I created specifically for this build. I hope that everything goes well because today is move-in day. I hope that these shrimp find themselves at home in this new tank. Anyway, let's get things started. Stocking a new tank is usually a fun endeavor, but it is often still fraught with some risks. In the best case scenarios, you know your tanks well, and you know what the water parameters are, or if anything is out of whack. I have one such tank in my collection, one that I have had so much good luck with that I know, to a certain degree of certainty, that it is 100% supportive of the shrimp that are housed in it. On the other hand, I have this new 20-gallon tank, which has not stood the test of time, and everything in it is far from being settled in. I've seen the tank slowly cycle over the last few weeks, and I have begun to think that it is time to start stocking the tank with a community of fantastic shrimp. I've known for a while that I wanted to put ghost shrimp in this tank, because they are hardy, cheap, and, I think, otherworldly beautiful. I think that people take them for granted, and so they have a special place in my heart, unfortunately. Since they are also bred, captured, and sold by the hundreds, they're not often in good health when you find them from most shops. I do have a good place that keeps their fish and shrimp healthy, and is a paragon in the community. That is where I buy my shrimp and plants. I went to the shop last week and decided it was time to get the community of ghost shrimp started. They would need a good beginning to strike out and survive in this new tank. Just a dozen or so would do, and once they were acclimated to the water via drip solution, I opened the bag and released them into their new home. They rushed around, scouring the substrate, sand, and plants, but eventually settled into a holding pattern as they became even more acclimated to the water. To be honest, it's not a bad setup. When compared to the store tanks or breeding tanks that these aquatic pets grow up in, there's really no contest. If you can offer something naturalistic with a good bacteria level and proper food, they should be living the good life in any home setup. It took the ghost shrimp a while to get used to the cement monolith in the center of the tank, but I was confident that they would enjoy their new home soon enough. The pool filter sand that I use elsewhere in the tank is very similar to the sand found in most fish stores. This sand is not necessarily good for plants, but it still offers an additional home for the beneficial bacteria. The cement planter offers a great spot for the plants to grow with little inhibition, and all 5 exposed sides give a great perch for the dwarf shrimp to set up shop and go about their business. It also offers yet another surface for the beneficial bacteria. I was worried that these shrimp would get damaged or stay away from the cement structure in the center of the tank, as it is a rough object, unlike anything else found in their natural environment. But these ghost shrimp are nimble and deceptively adept at moving about any obstacles. I also have lava rocks in my 30-gallon tank, and the shrimp there don't seem to mind those. They are much more sharp and unforgiving when compared to this cement. Most smaller shrimp are grazers and prefer to keep close to the ground or around protective plants, so if these ghost shrimp are really feeling exposed as these plants start to grow out, they can drop down between the tank walls and settle on the sand that covers the bottom. Most of the shrimp are there now. Only a few intrepid souls are brave enough to roam the surface of the planter, and that's probably due, partially at least, to my head popping up over them to take a look at them every so often. These little dudes have great eyesight, and even if they can't make out the finer details, which I still hear that they can, they should at least be able to detect proximate objects and seek shelter. It's a great defense mechanism and probably why the ones that survive in the wild are able to persist. In this shallow 20-gallon tank, once the planter is installed, it's just a few inches to the surface of the planted substrate from the top of the water, so it offers a great view on all sides of the shrimp and their grazing area. Ghost shrimp definitely have their quirks. The way that they move and feed, including how they clean themselves, is all very unique. They evoke the feel of a lanky and nervous scrounger who cannot seem to keep their hands still. Some of them even jitter in smaller, imperceivable movements when they seem as though they should be standing still. One has to remember that these small invertebrates have a max lifespan of about 2 years, and that is under the absolute best conditions. Just before I added the shrimp to this 20-gallon tank, I noticed a hitchhiker that gave me a pause. Roaming across the monolith was a lone snail, about the size of a pea, small gray with brownish tinted spots and a stubby conical shell. I'm pretty sure that this is a bladder snail, and it is near the top of the list for aquarium pests for a few very good reasons. First and foremost is its voracious appetite, and it grows extremely fast. Second, it can start laying eggs around 35 days after being born, which is lightning fast in the world of semi-complex organisms. Compounding this issue is the fact that bladder snails are hermaphroditic and can reproduce offspring asexually. It's no wonder that they are considered a triple threat, as they can go unnoticed for a long time and then suddenly reproduce to dangerous levels in a matter of weeks. About the time that I was writing the script, I removed the snail and placed him in a tank that I have outside for plants. All in all, I'd say the introduction of the ghost shrimp to the monolith was a smashing success. After just about a week in the tank, they're now adjusting very nicely, and they've wasted no time in claiming the entire structure as their home. I was happy to introduce them to the shrimp room, and I hope that they'll enjoy their time here by the window for the next few months. Just around the corner, the 30-gallon tank containing the mountains is just bouncing back from my trimming of the plants last week. The water is clear, and it's almost time to squeeze the sponge filters out once again. I haven't yet trimmed the moss that grows up in this tank around the mountain, but if I wait much longer, it may become something of a problem. I haven't been completely forthcoming with you though, as I have an even bigger surprise for the second half of this video that eclipses the introduction of the ghost shrimp community that I have been working on now for months. Last week when I picked up the ghost shrimp, I got something for this tank, and it's probably as big or bigger of a deal than the entire 20-gallon ghost shrimp tank put together. If you look closely, you can see here under the outcropping what has got me so excited that I just had to add it to my collection. This is Atia gabonesis, or most commonly known as the vampire shrimp. This extremely beautiful filter-feeding shrimp is a close relative to the bamboo shrimp, but it has a number of distinct physiological differences as well as a unique look that makes it a true king of the world of freshwater shrimp. They have a range of colors from white all the way through blue and into purple and dull browns. They seem to have smaller fans when compared to those of the bamboo shrimp, and I can see that they paw the water a bit more actively. Perhaps one of their biggest differences, apart from the stark visuals, is the fact that they are far more wary of exposing themselves to the elements. Their visual differences can be chalked up to evolution and the fact that you can find these light-colored shrimp hiding in some of the darker places in freshwater environments, like some sort of underwater version of a blind mole rat. Immediately upon putting this pair of newcomers into the tank, they disappeared. I was horror-stricken. You don't really want a new fish or shrimp to start hiding right away, because in the unfortunate event that they die, they may do so crammed into a small confined area that is hard to reach, thereby rotting until you figure out what has actually happened to them. When you are dealing with a creature like the vampire shrimp that is naturally shy, that issue just compounds upon itself. My new vampire shrimp proceeded to stuff themselves into the spaces that no shrimp had dared venture into until now. When I did find them over the next couple of days, I learned that they are not afraid to wiggle their way into the tiny cracks and wait out the daylight until they can move around more freely in the dark. It makes a ton of sense, because their coloration and behavior shows that they are masters of the darker nooks in their natural river environments. As I watched out for where these two would pop up next, I started to rediscover the hiding places in my tank that is now just over a year old. In this tank, there are some notable features. The main mountain formation was handcrafted by me when I epoxied two smaller halves of lava rock into one giant towering structure. It was so big once I had successfully formed it that I had to twist it and work it out in the best way to get it into the tank without damaging the acrylic. I knew when I was hardscaping this tank that I wanted spaces that would serve as perches and spots the shrimp could hide in. The main mountain has a hole that goes straight down through the middle and out the back side, but it also has a path leading up the tallest spire and out the side towards the rear of the tank. There are also a number of outcroppings that feature the iconic lava rock pockets created by superheated gases that extend inward nearly 2 inches apiece. These are the perfect spots for shrimp to hide in, and these new vampire shrimp proceeded to do exactly that. They crammed themselves into the smallest tunnels. They packed themselves together in the base of the hollowed out mountain. They stuffed themselves into the back of the tank under the foot of the mountain, which is a spot that I never even knew about. As the week moved on, I would not see them for entire days at a time, so I would slowly browse the tank after the lights went off with a flashlight, looking for the telltale sign of an antenna swinging back and forth out of an opening. This would give me the reassurance I needed to confirm that they were still alive. And alive they were. They were actually thriving. The vampire shrimp were also determined to get what they needed for food from the water via their fans. Their cousins, the bamboo shrimp, would resort to pawing at the ground, trying to pick up particles of food wherever they could. I have seen them brushing over the food pellets, being just a tad bit more aggressive than I had expected they would be. The vampire shrimp are much more wary, as I said before, so they will never go out onto the substrate, and I rarely see them waste any time that isn't spent swinging their arms about in the currents of the water. That's about it for the behavior that these newcomers display, but let's wrap things up with a quick recap of their incredible looks. They're ghostly, mysterious, and milky white. They look like a cross between a lobster and a shrimp, and their fans are smaller than those of the bamboo shrimp. When their fans are all tucked away, they look like fangs of some venomous insect or the striking claws of a mantis shrimp. Additionally, their front pair of walking legs are rather large when compared to other shrimp of similar size. I can see that they use these legs possibly as a defense, as they have tufts of hair on them. They appear to have thicker carapace there, and when everything is packed away in front of their heads, it forms a shield of sorts that would probably serve as good protection from a roaming predator. They are beautiful to watch, and their color is very subtle, with deep hues. So, keeping that in mind, I'm going to try and get more footage of them over the next couple weeks. I'll make sure to get some close-up shots if I can, and I'll snake around the tank trying to keep up with their impressive hiding abilities. It says a lot that these light-colored shrimp are able to hide so well in such a dark-colored environment. I'll get some underwater shots too if I'm able to, but they're very wary and may move out of the way if spooked. We'll see. Anyway, that is all that I have for you guys today. I do have a lot more footage recorded of both the ghost shrimp and the vampire shrimp, so I'll have singular videos for both of those sets coming up soon. It's time to let these shrimp sleep, and as always, I hope that you have some sweet shrimpy dreams before we meet next. Good night.